The Love Life and Lose Weight podcast will teach you the art and science of changing your habits around food. I'm your host, advanced certified weight and life coach, Heather Beardsley. I've helped hundreds of women just like you figure out how to stop dieting, lose weight, and love life on the journey to goal weight and beyond. Hey, welcome to episode 32. Another episode dedicated to unhelpful strategies that we fall into or habits that we fall into that get in the way of weight loss or make it really like a lot harder. So, this one is called Stop Pushing Past Tired with Food. It sounds really obvious to tell you that this is something that's going to get in the way of weight loss if you're eating when you're tired, because we know that eating does not fix tired. However, I don't think there's a person out there that could be listening to my words right now who hasn't had the experience of resisting the tired and choosing the eating instead. And so the question becomes, why do we resist tired? It seems so easy to say, like, go to bed. Like, you're tired, go to bed. And many people in my life, starting with my mother, used to tell me that. And it would sort of make me dig in and just be like, no. Like, I always had this idea that, like, I didn't want to let the day go. Like, if it felt like defeat if I went to bed. I had so many things I wanted to do that I hadn't yet done. Maybe you recognize yourself in this kind of thinking. Well, let's talk about it. So, it's very natural for any of us with a human brain to get a lot of like good feelings from doing things, right? When you accomplish things, when you do things you set out to do in your actions, it's really easy to think lush thoughts about it. We get dopamine from doing what we say we're going to do. And that can be like something that fuels us and that we want to kind of keep going and keep doing. I've said before that kind of we exist, we run on a steady diet of dopamine. That's what our brain does. It's the mechanism that we're sort of put together to run on. It's like our brain fuel, if you will. Food is our body fuel, and dopamine is our brain fuel, our like sort of life force fuel. And I say that because they've done experiments that they took away rats' ability in their brains to receive the dopamine that they were generating. They always have the rats like pushing on that food lever to give themselves food. And they gave them the ability to do that, but they took away the rat's ability to receive the dopamine that the food was giving them. And it has devastating consequences when we don't get the dopamine we need. The rats all lost the will to eat and drink water, and they all died. So I can't overemphasize how important it is for you to be giving yourself the dopamine that serves you and understand why you're doing what you're doing, in terms of like, what's my dopamine reward happening here? So back to the sleep and my resistance of going to bed when I was younger, because I didn't want to let the day go and I wanted to do more things. So I wasn't really a great sleeper. I was somebody who grew up in a house where nobody talked about getting enough sleep or how great sleep was or how'd you sleep last night. Like, I don't know. We just never talked about it. It was like just a thing you had to do. And you got up and you got on with your day and you never talked about sleep. Um, I had many roommates starting when I was 16. Every summer, I had at least 4 roommates every summer for 7 summers. Plus, I had roommates in college. I had roommates in my summer jobs as well. So many people crossed my path in our sleeping uh, situation. And I was like so surprised how much certain people talked about sleep and like their lack of it or their awesome sleep or how much sleep they got and how they needed to take a nap. And like all of these things were very interesting to me and curious. I was always kind of puzzled by it. I never got, because of my lack of, I guess, learning about how sleep itself can be a dopamine hit. Plus, I just don't think anyone in my family was much of a big sleeper. I think sleep was like fine, like no big deal, but no one was enamored with it. So, this is why, and through over 10,000 hours of one on one coaching, I have discovered through that as well that there is just a group of people out there. Maybe this is you, who has always had a very clear and strong relationship with sleep, not because you were taught it was important or anything like that, but like you just have a hard time functioning if you don't have an adequate amount of sleep. Um, you'll recognize this in yourself immediately if this applies to you. You probably were known to your parents as like being almost impossible to kind of be yourself if you had not had the required amount of sleep. And I tend to find this is not there's no studies here to back this up. This is just my clinical experience, my experiential experience, that those of us who need a lot of sleep and who have a hard time functioning without adequate sleep tend to need more sleep than the typical person, right? So you guys are like sleeping like 8+ hours a night and tend to like have no problem falling asleep, staying asleep. It's just easy and something that you've got to slip into your day. So, although there is those of you who are like, let's call you like big sleepers, right? And then there's those of you who are like me, who are like little s sleepers. All of us can kind of pick up habits of not getting the sleep that we need. The consequence, though, for the big sleepers is greater because y'all just need it more than the little s sleepers do. And I think you feel the effects of it more. So just know that that's totally normal. Just like anything, right? Like certain of us have, let's say, a harder time with smells that bother us, right? Or like we have worse eyesight and we need glasses. Like this is no different. This is just like you and sleep, and you have a unique relationship to it. Okay, so the question is, why do we eat when we know that we're physiologically tired? Well, there's plenty of reasons why. I briefly went over one of them, which is like wanting to just do more to get your dopamine from it. And you would probably tend to be a little S sleeper if you fall into that category. But there's many other reasons too. And the amount of justification for eating when you're tired always like is so fascinating to me as a coach. Um, my doctors out there, though, those of you who are in the field of medicine who trained and have to do overnight shifts and things like that, you're like trained to push past tired. And you probably likely developed many like um, essential strategies for doing that. Like, if you're working third shift and you need to have some, I don't know, some cookies and some coffee to push through your shift, of course you do that. That's not what I'm talking about here. I'm talking about a typical day to day experience where you notice you're tired at the end of the day, and your typical chronic response is to go and eat something instead of just going to bed. Um, Here are some of the reasons that I hear for doing this. I have no me time. This is my me time. So I'm going to have a snack because I've been running around all day doing things for my job and my family, and I've not done anything for myself. And so the food is much more compelling in that moment rather than the idea of going to bed. And you can see why, because if you go to bed, then the next thing you know, you're waking up and you're probably rinsing and repeating that formula of never taking any time for yourself. And so you can see that the prescription for this is to start creating a life during waking hours where you do carve out some time for yourself. And this is the thing about it, like it's not just going to happen someday unless you create the habit of making that happen. So, I mean, look, I would just say, like, hey, go ahead and eat. Like, if you're tired, if you want to. But the problem with it is that it has negative consequences of, keeping extra weight on us and or blocking our weight loss. Okay. So a lot of times with my clients, when they're like, well, I'm doing all the things and I'm following doable hunger and, I'm eating when I'm hungry and I'm stopping at enough. And I sometimes have to say, are you eating at the end of the day when you feel tired or even eating in the middle of the night? If the middle of the night thing is you, go scroll back in the podcast. I have a dedicated episode to that. So this is slightly different. This is eating before you go to bed. And the cue or the trigger for that habit is noticing that you're physiologically tired or mentally tired or emotionally tired. Those are all three different things. Okay, so let's break those apart. We all know what it's like to feel physically tired. Like your eyes are just going to feel heavy. You maybe feel a heaviness throughout your body. Maybe your legs feel heavy. I don't know. Everybody experiences it different, but it's definitely going to be body centric, the sensations that you feel. There's emotional tired, which means if you've been through a range of emotions, especially emotions that feel uncomfortable to you, or emotions that have the consequence of bringing your nervous system like out of what feels normal and peaceful and typical for you. So we call that in No BS like above home base or below home base, where like that my above home base would be coded to emotions like anxiety, fear, resistance, things like that. Below home base would be kind of coded to depression, feeling low, maybe even feeling like anger could be either one of those, but it's like not typical for you, right? And when we feel that way, we most often like try to like fight the feeling, or we do hard thinking in response to noticing those emotions. Um, I would say like today, I am definitely below home base. I am putting down my dog tomorrow, my beloved shepherd, and I feel very below home base. And I do feel emotionally tired right now because my mind has been, of course, like really thinking about this. And I'm already going through the emotions of sadness and grief and disappointment and, just this whole range of emotions. So I feel emotionally tired. That's different than physically tired. And then there's like mentally tired. And that is, my gosh, really easy to get into a state of this, especially with the work that many of us do in today's modern world. We have our brains on a computer screen. We're doing really complex level types of thinking where we're analyzing and we're synthesizing and we're creating. And this is all very high level requirements as far as processing in our brains go. I would say that what I do coaching is can be very mentally tiring because when I'm working one-on-one with a client, I'm listening to what they're saying. I'm sensing how their thoughts are created and by their beliefs, and how those thoughts create the feelings, and how the feelings are creating the actions that they take or the actions that they don't take. And then I'm sort of rummaging around to try to figure out what those results are. And then I'm eliciting feedback from them about where it is they want to go, if they want to keep it that way, if they want to change. And then I'm extrapolating from that, like helping them figure out opportunities to change that, and or figuring out what's in the way, these hidden beliefs underneath. So when I'm coaching, I'm in their mind, like completely in there, like looking at the structures that are playing out and helping to show those structures to my clients. And, that's why I only do 4 in a row and then I take a break, because my brain is like, just needs a break. It just needs to not think at such a high level, so that it can kind of regenerate and, um, create more energy so it can continue to function. So there's 3 levels of tired, and we can create a habit of eating in response to any one or combination of those 3 forms of tired. I mean, there might be other forms of tired too. I haven't really thought about it. But, we don't need to get all technical about this. The thing is understanding why you do it. So let's go through some of the other reasons. We already covered um, the common justification for eating when you're tired being that there's no me time in your day. And we went over like what the remedy for that would be, which is to start deliberately scheduling mini breaks that are counting toward you time, where you just get to do what you want to do rather than you being kind of like the slave to your calendar or other people's needs, right? The other reason I went over is the tension of tired, right? If you're driving yourself past tired, any one of the tireds, physically, mentally, emotionally, um, your nervous system is going to start to go above or below home base. And that's going to create a cascade of stress hormones in your body that is going to create a big amount of tension at the end of your day. And, food gives us dopamine and relieves us from that tension, which is why eating food will make sense to a very tired brain, a tired body, and a tired emotional state, right? So, one thing I really want you to take away from this is it makes sense that you eat in response to tired. Okay. But we want you to understand why and the limitations of believing that, so that you can help meet your needs when you are tired, in a better way, and start creating a life on the front end of feeling tired, so that that tension of tired doesn't build up to those levels where eating is sort of like the only choice that feels doable for you in that moment. Um, so we talked about like having a habit of driving yourself through your day, pushing past tired, never taking breaks, doing too much work at the computer, like for way too long without taking just breaks with your eyes alone from looking at the computer. Um, going outside and having your eyes look at trees that are much further away than just this fixed object that is in front of your eyes. It's not natural. Like our brains are not meant to be staring at one thing for this many hours in a day, right? And then there's this thing that happens. We see it a lot with kids. You'll recognize it. It's called wired and tired. So this is like just too much stimulation coming into our physical bodies in the course of a day. Introverts know this really easily when they go into a social setting and they've been kind of like taking, like feeling the energy that feels a little bit like off center for them as an introvert. Like, I think they're just very, introverts are very sensitive to a lot of social energy and sensory input that comes from social situations. And they will come home from social events kind of wired and tired. And I notice this all. This is why I don't do yoga at night anymore. Even like the relaxation yoga, it just, the energy that's happening when I'm moving my body, just it brings me above home base so that it kind of turns off my natural tired cascade, like my melatonin and feeling normally sleepy. And this is why, like, I can't hang out too late at book club either, because I have a longer commute home. So it takes a while for me to get home, flying down the highway. That's stimulating to a body at, 10 o'clock at night. It's very different than sitting in your living room watching a program with your family. I mean, you got to like really take in um, a filtration system of what am I exposing myself to throughout the course of my day that would really deplete my energetic reserves, either mentally, emotionally, or physically. And how am I creating accommodations for that? It requires you to be a more protective gatekeeper of your energy. And when you just create an awareness over this, like, how has my energy been depleted today? And how can I really protect that and save it for the period that is important to me? So if you are somebody, let's say you have little kids and you are most of your day attending to other people's needs, you want to perhaps create some systems or some level ups to your day where you can take breaks during that time. We're often told with babies, like, when they sleep, you should sleep. And it is going to be, it's going to require you to give up something that you're currently doing, that you're probably getting a dopamine hit from. But this is like an investment. Okay. It's going to require doing something different. Let's say you are that mom of little kids, you're doing stuff all day, you know, laying down in your bed when they have their nap time, or letting somebody else pick them up, let's say from their daycare, or saying yes when people want to help or do things for you, is going to give you those little breaks so that it's not all setting you up to feel like you have to be, like, you have to take some time for yourself or you're going to lose your mind. You know what I mean? That's how I used to be. And I remember uh, my youngest went to Temple Preschool, and I will never forget the director. Her name was Ruth. And I got the impression that she knew that I was like just doing too much. And, here's a great example. As a stay at home mom, I felt as though I should be able to, meet all my kids' needs and always like pick them up at the minimum time that they're there and never need like the aftercare part. Well, the truth was, I was single parenting a lot, even though I was married. My husband at the time was a traveler for work, sometimes up to 3/4 of the year. So I was doing all the stuff on my own. And I remember her saying, like, hey, like, you don't have, it's okay that you're late. We're just going to put him in aftercare. Like, don't worry. I think I had something come up with one of my dogs or something. I don't know. But I was like panicked that I wouldn't be there on time to go get my kid. And she was just like, hey, mama, it's okay. That's what we're here for. We're here to take care of your kid so you can take care of your life. And I just want to like be that voice of Ruth for you, to say that, like, you have needs to rest your mind, rest yourself emotionally, rest yourself mentally. And so for mental rest, you're going to want to do meditation. I cannot emphasize enough what um, a perfect answer meditation is for a tired brain, a tired, conscious thinking brain. Um, the rest we get at sleep for like overnight sleeping is not the same as meditative rest while you're awake. They're just, they meet two totally different needs. The thinking brain is on, if you think about this, we have an expectation to think and think well and think smartly. All of our waking hours, we have this expectation, and our brains have just been performing beautifully. But when your brain does get tired, it will just function so much better if you can rest it in your day. This is why I recommend at least 10 minutes of meditation whenever you can, especially if you're above or below home base with your nervous system, or you just feel mentally tired, like foggy, tired, like what time is it? Right? That's a great indication that you've been so focused on intense work that you've sort of lost track of other things. Right? I mean, sometimes that can be play and fun and awesome stuff, right? But when you're working and you're doing output things, like meditation is a great recharger. It's like plugging your thinking brain into the main, like the wall outlet in your house. It's going to allow your brain to recharge. Okay. Emotional rest. You can help that by doing your journaling every day. Um, this gets the thoughts out of your brain and onto paper so you can look at them with a removed perspective. It's like almost like cleaning out the RAM or the short term memory in your brain, because your brain is a holder of information for you. It was never designed to hold as much information as we ask our brains to hold in the 21st century. I mean, if you just think about it, think about a farmer 200 years ago. How much information do they have to hold in their brain? Not a lot, right? They had thoughts about their animals, their crops, and their family. They did not have news from all over the world intruding into their brain, or thoughts about political stuff, unless they actually took the action to go buy a newspaper and then sit down to read it. They weren't picking up a phone every day and just getting like this fire hose of information into their brain. So again, like, we want to be good protectors of our energy and our output and our bandwidth. Okay. And of course, physiological rest, especially, of course, on the day to day, we need to have a minimum amount of sleep. We always recommend 7 hours minimum for just as a generic rule. But if you know that you're a big ass sleeper, not big ass, a big S sleeper, you know that you probably need more. And so we want you sticking with that number. There's plenty of watches and Aura rings and things that you can use to track your sleep, which are really helpful these days. And just create a habit of doing it. Before we end, I want to just say one note on burnout. If you're feeling burnt out, um, your needs for rest are vastly increased. And in order to overcome that, it requires completing the stress cycle and having an awareness of that stress cycle and doing things to kind of interrupt that. You can't just rest because you're burned out. You've got to figure out why your life is burning you out and then go after the root causes of that. I want to recommend a good book by Emily Nagoski. It's the Burnout Book. It's a longer name. I'll link to it in the show notes. She offers a lot of scientifically proven ways for you to stop the stress cycle, complete the stress cycle so that you can recover. And, this is not like a one day thing. This is something that is going to have to happen over time. And, just with me and, my doggy and things happening, like I went ahead and canceled my plans tomorrow night because even though at the time I made them last week, I had no idea this was going to happen. And I'm like, there's no way. Like the idea of going to meet my friend later seems like a good distraction, but I know I'm just going to want to be resting in my house. I'm going to be emotionally exhausted after, you know, I say goodbye to my pup, and, this sort of protective self care over our energy and our relative level of depletion can really be life changing for you. And I want to just also note that a body that is overtly tired, or a brain that's tired, or a nervous system that's tired is not going to allow you to lose weight the way that you expect it to if you're minimizing that impact. Um, Emotional, mental, physical exhaustion tells your habit brain, your primal sense of sensory, like, the police department, the fire department of your body, like you're being chased by a predator, a relentless predator every single day. It doesn't understand why you're not well rested. Your body expects you to have a sense of well-being, right? And if you don't, because you're tired and burnt out and exhausted, it's going to hold on to every calorie because it thinks that you are in a survival situation. So don't minimize sleep requirements, okay? And eating over feeling tired is delaying you from feeling your best. And it's kind of in the way of your body being able to help you release the weight that you're looking for in your weight loss journey. So, this is your responsibility as the good steward of you. And I just encourage you to really take a close look at how you might be eating in response to tired. I want you to really question it and come up with a plan, like a protocol for how you can take care of yourself in the day to day habits so that you're not so tired and looking for immediate relief from food, and set that up as like new habits and just work on them. Um, and then, of course, make a protocol for in the moment when you're thinking food's a good idea because you're tired. And just try and experiment with some other options besides food. Maybe you can write yourself a letter when you're well rested to the future you who wants to eat because she's exhausted. Like, can you talk to her in a way that you can break through that sort of like singular focus on food as like the way to feel better? What do you need to hear in those moments? Like what feels really reassuring, and like maybe you could offer yourself some thoughts that would help you feel maybe like resigned or accepting that the best thing that you can do for yourself is to just rest in whatever way meets that tired feeling physically, mentally, or emotionally. Okay. So, we'll be all right. I know many of you will probably reach out because of what I've got going on tomorrow with my doggy, but, you know, um, I am the steward of her, being her owner. And the best way that we can show love um, sometimes is making hard choices for, like in my case, my dog who can't make those decisions for her. And you, as the manager of you can make hard decisions for that version of you who's just so tired. Like use it, it's not easy work, but it's always worth it. Okay. Stay focused. And so long. Hey, if this episode was helpful, then let's connect. Visit hbeardsley.com/subscribe. That's HBEARDSLEY.com/subscribe. You'll get a gift from me, exclusive subscriber content, and advanced notice of in-person events.